Pastor Jerome here, and I want to speak to you today, not as a pastor, but as a dad. And I'm sure many of you are aware of the tragic killing of Mike Brown and the rioting and looting taking place in Ferguson, Missouri. And this event has reminded us of race relations, racial profiling, racism, and how, though it has been many, many years, we still have a long way to go. And I want to be clear because I think it's important that people in my position and others address this issue. It is vital, rather, that we not make this issue a political issue, that we not even restrict this issue to race, but it is one of justice, and it has a direct, I want to say that again, a direct correlation to the gospel, because the gospel is a message of justice. And when we look at the landscape of our country, it is clear that African American men in particular are disproportionately racially profiled, killed when unarmed, and wrongfully accused in this country. And it is not something that we should turn a blind eye to. It is not something that we should ignore. And it is not something that we should act like as if it does not exist. This is in our face. And the gospel demands that we address, that we approach, that we engage in the conversation of this magnitude. And what I hope to do is for us to see Mike Brown as a person. I've been reading a lot, I've been watching a lot, and have been a ton of adjectives used to describe this young man. He's been described as a big fella. He's been described as a thug. He's been described as a suspect. But he has not been described as a person. It is vital that we understand that the reason so many people of color, the reason so many African Americans are enraged by this is not because of the event in and of itself, but it is the devaluing of the black life, in particular the life of African American males. I have friends that have been racially profiled, and I have been a victim of racial profiling myself. I have been wrongfully pulled over, asked questions, searched, license ran without speeding, without any provocation. And this is a reality that so many of us live with. But what's sad is when there are many with a huge platform to speak to majority culture, but for some reason they remain silent on this issue. And again, I hope that we understand this, that Mike Brown could be your son. But here's the reality. If he does not share Mike Brown's skin tone, if he does not share Mike Brown's size, then in many cases, if he's a part of the majority culture, he will be given the benefit of the doubt. As I was thinking about this, there's a poignant question that my son asks me almost every day before I leave to go to work. And I look down at my son, who is 3 years old now, and he looks back at me with his big, beautiful eyes, and he says this: "Daddy, are you leaving me?" And that question pierces my heart every time he asks the question, because he asks as if I'm never coming back, and he looks intently in my eyes waiting for an answer, and I tend to respond to him the same way. Daddy will be back, son. By God's will and by God's grace, Daddy will be back. But I also recognize that in this country, that one day soon, I'll have to have the talk with my son. And when I say the talk, I'm not talking about the birds and the bees. I'm not talking about women. I'm talking about the talk of being an African American male in this country. And I have to explain to him that some will see you as a suspect, no matter how nice you look. I have to teach him about being followed in stores simply because he's black, and that someone may pull him over without any provocation. And I have to tell my son, son, make sure that your hands can be seen. Son, do not reach for your pockets quickly. Son, do not make any rash movement. And what's sad is that I have to have this conversation in this country, and some think that the playing field is level. That is simply not the truth. And so one day soon, this 3-year-old boy who looks at his dad and says, "Daddy, are you leaving me? 13 years from now, he'll be 16. I'll be 48. And this 3-year-old boy will be 16, and he'll ask me for the keys to my car. And he'll ask to go out. And I'll be 48. I'll probably have a little gray by then. I'll have my own big eyes looking at him. And I have to wonder in this country, son, are you leaving me? Because of the injustice in this country, because of racial profiling, because of the many that are silent about this issue, I have to live with this fear. And I pray that people will understand that when most people of color see Mike Brown, they see their son. I don't see just Mike Brown. I see Jordan, Jerome Jordan Gator III, who I want to have a vibrant life, who I want to outlive me. So we must speak out on this. We cannot be saved and silent. The gospel is a message of justice, and it demands a response. African American men have the question my son poses to me. They have to worry about this with their sons. Son, are you leaving me? It should not be this way in this country. Please take a stand. Do not be saved in silence.